folks. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bonnie Walker, Executive Director for Diversity and Inclusion Strategy. I welcome you all, faculty, staff, students, friends, and colleagues. Everybody is here for the inaugural opening of our Great Minds, Brave Spaces speaker series. We hope this kicks off and takes off for the coming academic year and beyond. We're happy that you're here. Grab food if you haven't already. Feel free to get up and move as you need to. The Division of Talent and Inclusion, formerly HR, strives to create and institutionalize spaces like this where individuals from all over campus can come together, share ideas, passions, questions, and even food, which we know everybody loves. This new campus-wide initiative, Great Minds, Brave Spaces, is aimed to going forward at least once a term. We might increase that depending on the draw that we see going forward, but we plan, again, stapling this event going forward at least once a term. It will typically be around lunchtime, so you can bank on that. And the conversation will be presentation style, workshop style, but we think for best engagement, interaction is a good thing going forward, so we will aim for that as well. But all of this sharing is to say that this is a community effort, not something that the Office of Talent and Inclusion wants to impose on you, but rather we want to partner with you on this endeavor. So if you have input, questions, there are conversations or topics that you want to bring forward as we move the series forward, we welcome that input. So please bring it to us. For those of you that didn't RSVP, no issue at all. We always welcome folks to come. But if you are able to RSVP in the future, please do so only because of planning. We're thinking about food and space and sort of the most comfortable place for you going forward. Today at 4 p.m. in the Higgins House Great Hall, we are going to have a debrief of this conversation, this presentation. We plan to do this going forward for all of the speakers. So for anybody who has presented anything, you know that an hour is a short period of time to really dig in. We can give some surface information, get a little bit of engagement going on, but to really kind of flesh it out, have some conversation, ask questions and discussion, that often takes a little bit more time to unfold and unpack. So for every discussion series, presentation, we will again have a debrief, typically the day of if we can, or the evening of, but it might just be during that week or later that month. So again, I just want to reiterate that essentially this series is for you, our community. We want to make sure that it is tailored to what you're interested in coming out for and the conversations and discussions that you want to engage in. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first presentation, our first speaker, Ms. Charlana Simmons. For those of you who don't know Charlana, she is the Director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs. As the Director of Multicultural Affairs, she leads the mission supporting a diverse and inclusive environment at WPI that is aligned with the larger institutional goals of diversity and inclusion for students, faculty, and staff. This is accomplished by providing a range of programs designed to celebrate diversity and inclusion in many forms, including but not limited to race, class, gender, sexuality, and religion. Under the auspices of the Office of Multicultural Affairs are also the Oasis House and the Collegiate Religious Center. In her previous roles, including Director of Student Success and Diversity at the University of Massachusetts, she was also Associate Director of College Programs in the David T. Kearns Center at the University of Rochester, and that was from 2007 to 2013. She received a Master's in Science and Secondary English Education and Bachelor of Arts in English Literature from the University of Rochester in Rochester, New York. During her tenure in higher education as a professional, she has advocated for educational equity and moving towards a more inclusive society with a focus on supporting students who are traditionally underrepresented in higher education. So without further ado, not only do I want to introduce Charlana, but I want to do a quick introduction of the book, the text that she will give some focus to today in her presentation, Intersectionality in Higher Education, and she was an associate editor for this book. So.
Thank you, Bonnie. Welcome everyone to Great Minds, Brave Spaces. Yes, you can purchase this text on Amazon or the other place where you buy books. What is it, Barnes and Nobles? Yes, it's on there. So we had these lofty ideas about what we wanted to do today, but yes, 40 minutes is not a whole lot of time. And there are also some cautionary words in this text that kind of challenge us to think about how we sometimes pick things up and go running with it before we really understand the context of it, how it was created, you know, why a theoretical framework or a concept was brought into being, what it was designed to do. So while we want to say you're going to learn about intersectionality in this session, you're going to learn how to apply it, and then you're going to be off and running, that's not necessarily how this is going to work. So to begin, intersectionality was used primarily as a lens in higher education, in legal studies, to help legal scholars think about the intersections of multiply oppressive identities. So Kimberlé Crenshaw in 1989 wrote the first article that introduced the idea, and her issue as a legal scholar that necessitated the introduction of intersectionality was some work that she was doing around Black women and domestic violence. How the legal literature situated the conversation about rape specifically in two paradigms. One paradigm, how Black men are often falsely accused or sometimes falsely accused of harming white women in sexual assault, but also how white women are harmed as it relates to sexual assault. And in those two arguments, one anti-racist and one feminist, the idea that Black women are harmed was never an ideology that was put forth in the legal discourse. So she realized the necessity to create a framework that would allow us to think about what happens at the intersection of anti-racist and feminist work. And with all of her tools from Black feminist theory, but also from critical race theory, she was able to create intersectionality. So the goal in applying it to higher education is to help practitioners understand the multiply oppressed frames that students may bring to their college experience. Intersectionality is rooted in critical race theory and also Black feminist theory, and it was created as a theory to highlight the ways in which being Black and being a woman amplify oppressive forces. So in the session, what we're going to try to do is get a clear definition of intersectionality, have some sense of its history, its intended uses, and ways it can be operationalized in higher education. So how many people have traveled by airplane recently? Okay. How was your landing? Fine, no issues? Okay. So one time I was traveling by air from Washington, D.C. Every time I get on a plane from D.C., something crazy happens. So I'm coming back from Washington, D.C. We're trying to fly into Logan Airport. We're flying in. It's a disaster, right? The plane is going like this and we're all over the place. Like luggage is coming out of the overhead compartment. Like this is the first time this has ever happened. So I'm sitting there like clutching the table for dear life. The plane is tilted this way. So I'm sitting on this side of the plane and it literally is flying like this. So I happen to look out the window down, you know, because it's down, right? The plane is tilted this way. So I look out the window and I see the ground, and I'm like, okay, so we're flying into Logan Airport sideways, like this. So eventually the person comes on and he says, well, we cannot safely land this plane in Boston tonight, so we're going to be redirected to Hartford. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking out the window, the ground is getting closer, and I'm like, redirect any minute now. So they have to get clearance first, because you can't just fly a plane in any direction you want to, because there are other planes in the sky. So they're waiting for the people to say, your course is clear, you can go in the other direction. So we go like this, vroom, right? And then we fly from Boston to Hartford, and we land relatively safely. So if you're like me, when people talk, you can create photos in your head. You saw that picture in your mind. That is probably how the part where we apply this theory to higher ed is gonna go later. So just be ready for an interesting landing. So, yeah, all of that to say this might be a bumpy ride. So Bonnie gave an accurate description of my history. I do want to add, though, that my primary experience in higher education is managing programs from the National Science Foundation and the Department of Education, specifically the NSF STEM, STEP, the Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program, and the LSAMP program, which is also a National Science Foundation program. My career grant totals are $10.2 million. So to figure out who is in the room, we're gonna ask you to very quickly say your name, your role at WPI, and one fun fact about yourself and why you chose this session. We are going to start with this young man here. So if you could stand up and face the crowd and say loudly, my name is Joe. I don't think his name is Joe, but we'll just go with that.
Good guess.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Vinny. I'm a graduate student and a graduate assistant here on campus. A fun fact about myself is that I'm allergic to peanuts. So it's been fun.
Sometimes not so fun.
And I chose this session because I guess I don't see a lot of sessions about topics like this on campus. Not that there's not, I might just not know about them, but I just wanted to learn more.
And Vinny, what department are you in?
I'm in the civil engineering.
Civil engineering.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Vinny.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Christina De Oliveira. I am a junior undergraduate biochemistry major here, and one fun fact about myself is that I'm applying to neuroscience PhD programs in the fall. And I chose this section because, like Vinny, I just haven't seen too many conversations like this on our campus, and it's very interesting in what's being shared. And this is a brief speech, so I'm very excited to see what is shared.
I'm going to streamline this activity by introducing my staff. Nelson Pham is the assistant director who focuses on diversity programs. Catalina Ocampo is the assistant director in my office that focuses on women's programs. They chose this session because they didn't have a choice. That's why they're here. We're going to skip to Caitlin.
Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin Donovan, Assistant Director of Student Activities here at WPI. Fun fact about myself, I am a chocolate fiend. I love all things chocolate. And I chose this session because I went to grad school at UMass Amherst, and when I was there, I got really entrenched in learning a lot more about social justice, specifically in higher education. And so since then, I always find it refreshing and insightful to take in other learning opportunities regarding that topic, and so I'm interested in more from Charlana.
Great.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophomore Squad. You may have gotten an email from me, or a couple of emails from me. Thanks for being patient and wonderful and here, present. I am the Diversity Inclusion Specialist at Talent and Inclusion, formerly HR. And one fun fact about myself is I used to visit Haiti where my family was from, and I have vivid memories of being chased by a turkey.
That's a fun fact.
Hi, I'm Taylor Suda. I am staff in projects program. Fun fact about myself, I've never written a course, although it's on my list of things to do. And I chose this session because
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patty McGinnis. I'm from the Office of Student Aid and Financial Literacy. I'm staff. Fun fact, we just got a puppy in our house. We have a 9-week-old golden retriever. So maybe Evan, the dogs can get together and be friends. And I really don't know much about this topic, so I thought it was something good for us.
Thank you. Lady who I met at Starbucks early this morning.
Fun fact, love Starbucks. Maureen Maynard, I'm staff. I work in the Office of Lifetime Engagement, specifically alumni relations. Why I chose this session, WPI is evolving more with diversity and inclusion, and I just want to soak it up and be the best I can be and for WPI.
Thank you.
My name is Bree Ross. I work in alumni relations at Eden North Giving. I obviously am staff. One fun fact about myself is that I am currently being kicked by my child. He's enjoying listening to this as well, I can tell. I chose this section because I used to sit on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for CASE, CASE District 1, a couple of years ago. And when I moved over to WPI, it was something that I kind of lost touch with. So I thought this was another way of getting involved.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Vivian, and I'm a student here at WPI, majoring in mechanical engineering. And a fun fact about myself is that every summer, me and my family likes to go traveling somewhere. And I chose this section because I really want to learn more about controversial subjects, because it's not like every day where I get to really learn more about it.
Thank you, Nancy.
My name is Natalia. I'm a student here at WPI. Fun fact about myself, I have a pet cat. I chose this session because I hope to one day work with the Office of Multicultural Affairs in the Market Center. So I thought this would help me learn more about.
Thank you. Table starting with Ann.
Hi everybody, I'm Ann Ogilvy. I'm the Executive Director of the Global Projects Program. And fun fact about me is I left late last night doing Valentine's with my 3 young sons. We're getting better cutting out hearts. And I'm here today because I just think this conversation is really important. I'm so glad this is happening. Like you, I also love the title. I think this is a great title and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. New guy to her left.
New guy. Jeff, new guy.
Okay, Larkin, I'm new. I've been here about 7 months. I've worked in undergraduate enrollment services as a Salesforce administrator. Fun fact about myself, I play the guitar. It's not always fun for my family, but it's fun for me. And there's a session, there's something I wanted to learn more about, and it pertains to admissions. So that's the part.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Evan Brunel. I'm staff on Communications Strategies at Undergraduate Enrollment Services. Fun fact, this summer I went on a boat across the country to 21 states. I showed this session, their topics are all been important to me to be involved in and learn more about, and I attended a few listening circles in the past year and a half I've been here.
Thank you, Evan.
Hi everyone, Andy Colombo, Dean of Admission and Financial Aid. And one fun fact, so in admissions you meet a lot of interesting people and you have a lot of surprising conversations. My second year in admissions probably took the cake, where I came back from a college fair one night, went to the hotel restaurant. It was empty except for Flavor Flav. We talked politics for like 3 hours. It was very surprising. He's not a George W. Bush fan.
Thank you, Andy.
Oh, and I chose this session because I haven't attended, or I've attended a lot of these sort of events at WPI. I have yet to leave one without learning many things. So that's
And you wanted to find a way to work Flavor Flav into a conversation. Totally.
Oh, I find ways every week.
That's not I'm Sue Songraff, Director of Pre-Collegiate Outreach Programs here at WPI. In Bree's honor, fun
you, Sue.
I'm Christine Banning. I work with Sue in pre-collegiate outreach programs, so I'm staff. I have a secret expertise in the Charlana Native American language, and I'm here because it's important.
Thank you. Woman with the red sweater.
Hi, my name is Alana Drost. I'm the new Executive Director of Talent Strategy and Engagement within HR. I've been here, this is month 4, and I'm here because Bonnie is my partner in crime as we really look at how talent and diversity and inclusion interweave together, and they're really kind of all one thing. So we are kind of pioneering that work together of how we make things a little more diverse and inclusive across staff, faculty, and student care.
Thank
Oh,
you.
something fun.
Yes.
I have 3 kids and a dog, a golden retriever.
Next.
My name's Doreen Manning. I'm staff here. I'm the managing editor of the WPI Journal. Fun fact about myself, I'm obsessed with skating and have a 5-foot ramp in my barn. And I chose this session because I'm trying really hard to make sure that the journal covers as much diverse content as it can, and I thought this would be a good way to help educate myself.
Thank you. Please.
I'm Julie Constellation. I work with Marine Marketing. I'm one of the writers of there. Fun fact, I don't know, I will drive my family anywhere to get ice cream. Literally anywhere. And I came because I'm curious and I wanted to know this conversation and it's important to me.
Thank you.
Happy Tuesday. Greg Snoddy, Student Affairs. I'm a staff person here, and fun fact about myself, well, I don't know if there's any. I actually rebuilt snow blowers from the ground up, so that's
Wow.
And simply want to be a sponge for everything we do here from this perspective.
And Dean Snoddy is certainly so supportive of our activities. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm a payroll specialist. Fun fact, I'm originally from California, and tonight I'm flying back for Chinese New Year's. So, I see my dog, which is more than my family. And I'm here to support Christelle, you know, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My name is Mayase. I'm also in payroll. And fun fact about myself is every time I'm driving past Salisbury, I always look out for the WPI students. I don't know why. And when I see them, I go, that's my baby. That's my baby. My children always wonder, do you know everyone? I said, almost. I can remember.
Yeah.
I'm here because I really wanted to just get what is called the word brave is what really attracted me, so I wanted to hear what that is all about.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Janowski. I'm the benefits administrator in the Division of Talent and Inclusion. I'm a staff member here. Fun fact, I love to travel, and in about 5 weeks I will be on the Caribbean island with a palm tree off of a cruise ship, so looking forward to that. Planning my next vacation, and why did I choose this session? I just think it's important that we do these conversations across the whole campus, not just in pockets. And it's nice that this is a nice, diverse group here from different departments and different areas.
Thank you. Matt?
Hi everyone, Matt Foster, Assistant Director of Residential Education and Residential Services. Fun fact is I have an associate's degree in architectural design and drafting, and I'm here because we need to continue talking about this and keep the topic going.
Hi, I'm Christine Cherry, Director of Student Activities, staff member. Fun fact, I've been kind of full-time thinker of fun fact. I really like coffee, and I'm really excited to Dunkin' Donuts downstairs like every single day, so we'll just do that. And I'm here because I think that conversations like this are really important, but I also find that I learn from conversations like this on a very regular basis, so I love hearing
challenge us all to try to introduce ourselves with our pronouns if comfortable. In future events and activities, which kind of relates to why I chose to be here. So I am one of the co-advisors to the Alliance on campus, and I personally live the intersectionality life pretty regularly throughout my life, and also work with our students that are part of the Alliance non-sections as well. So I think, much like Sue and Matt and others, it's important to keep the conversation going. And I'm also the chair of Project Inclusion. I'm going to shameless plug the staff subcommittee. I think this very much relates to that as well. If you want more information about that, chat with me.
Thank you.
Peter Hansen, I'm a faculty member in History and International Global Studies. Fun fact, Halloween is my birthday. I chose this session because I'm involved with Project Inclusion, but also class that I teach in DTER as a session where we talk about intersectionality. I want to make sure that I know what I'm talking about.
That might be helpful. So I asked you all to go through those lengthy introductions because later on in about 9 minutes, you're going to have to fill out a form where you kind of think deeply about all of your identity frames, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how they intersect with power and privilege. So yes, this is a safe space. We're going to respect each other. We're going to be sensitive to other people's issues or modalities. We're going to keep things confidential and feel free to ask questions, be open to learning. If we're at a point where there's a conversation happening and you have a burning question, please write it down. If we can't address it during this session, we will address it later this afternoon, or it can be addressed through email. So please keep an open mind and be prepared to learn a lot. So the question is, how did this project start? So this guy calls me up, right? How does an out-of-work higher education professional, who I was at the time, become a managing editor of a volume dedicated to a theory that so expertly describes my life as a Black woman, as a mother to a Black woman child, and as an educator of children from all backgrounds, but specifically a champion of students from diverse backgrounds that are historically underrepresented in higher education? Apparently, I had been living intersectionality in my work, and I didn't know it. So often we move about our jobs doing and being without having the language that describes our specific approaches. So this guy calls me and says, hey, I'm doing a book project. I don't know if this is gonna work. You know, I don't have an editor. You know, I don't have a publisher. I really want you to be with me on this project. I'm like, dude, I can't do this. Like, I was trying to finish my, my PhD. It was a lot going on. So he's like, no, you do intersectionality every day. You know, you support students who have multiply oppressive identities. You know, students who are first generation and low income, students who are women of color who are also first generation, students who are women of color, you know, men of color in the academy. So he's like, you've been doing this for a long time. You should really consider doing this. So I said, okay, fine. What does it entail? He tells me what the workload is. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll do it. So when he explained the royalty part of the process, I was like, I am in. But most specifically because I learned a long time ago that your written work is one of the best ways to achieve immortality. You know, we're still reading Shakespeare and James Baldwin and Gloria, what's it? No, Neil Hurston. What's the woman's name? Oh, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Yes, so we're still reading all of these authors who have been long dead. So I was thinking, I could kill two birds with one stone. I could make some money and live forever at the same time. This is awesome. So yes, I got into it. So I started working with Dr. Mitchell, who has a PhD in higher ed from the University of Minnesota. He is now at Bel Air University in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and his work focuses on the impacts of race, gender, and identity at the intersections in higher education. So what is intersectionality? So according to Smith 2014, intersectionality is a description of the way multiple oppressions are experienced. Indeed, Crenshaw uses the following analogy, referring to a traffic intersection or crossroad to concretize the concept. So she wants you to consider an analogy to traffic in an intersection, coming and going in all four directions. So a T, right? Discrimination, like traffic through an intersection, may flow in one direction and it may flow in another. If an accident happens in the intersection, it can be caused by cars traveling from any number of directions and sometimes from all of them. Similarly, if a black woman is harmed because she is in an intersection, her injury could result from sex discrimination, which could be moving on the x-axis, or from racial discrimination, which could be moving on the y-axis, but it is not always easy to reconstruct the incident. Sometimes the skid marks and the injuries simply indicate that they occur simultaneously, frustrating efforts to determine which driver caused the harm. One of my advisors, Dr. Adrian Dixon, who is currently at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who is a third wave critical race theorist, added to this example by saying, if the emergency personnel show up and there is one ambulance that is specifically designed to handle race and another ambulance that is specifically designed to handle gender, but exclusive, so only women, but not women of color, only white women, only people of color, but only men of color. So where does this woman who is laying in the street bleeding to death, where is the emergency vehicle that is designed to support the injuries of a woman who is also a person of color? So what they're trying to dramatize for us is that the anti-racist movements and the feminist movements have focused their energies in ways that make the black woman completely invisible. And this is how the concept of intersectionality came into being. You can think back to the ways in which the civil rights movement was framed. Most of the focus was on Martin Luther King, you know, not Colin Powell, Andrew Young, Thurgood Marshall, the men who were at the forefront of the movement. Little of the focus was on the women who were instrumental in strategizing the movement. Fannie Lou Hamer. Rosa Parks was not a tired seamstress. She was strategic. And not just those women, but also the spouses of some of the major men in the movement. You know, Betty Shabazz, Martin Luther King's wife, and some of the other women that their names are never mentioned. So how is this framework able to show us what happens at the intersections? It acknowledges both black women's womanhood and their blackness at the same time, but also calls into account the power dynamics that create these multiply oppressive identities. One of the things that you have to consider when you think about intersectionality is that there are some underlying tenets. There are some things that cannot be disconnected from intersectionality. Racism is a real thing. It is real, it is impactful, and it is ever present. So it's inextricably linked to this concept. There are groups of people who have advantage and groups that have disadvantage in the social structure depending on your proximity to the ruling class. In this country, the ruling class, white, wealthy, Protestant, heterosexual, able-bodied men. I had to do a presentation at our high school around the corner. What's it called? Mass Academy. There was some incident. I had to do some words that wound, presentation to the students, 11th graders and 12th graders. So when you got to talk to students about racism, it is difficult because they're just like, no, everything is fair. And these students were great because they came back at me. And I was like, oh, the United States has an oppressive, kind of underlaying in its history, and it impacts everything that was built on top of that. So think about a garbage dump. So there's a garbage dump, the chemicals get in the ground, and everything that you build on top of that land is going to be impacted by whatever issues are in that soil. So I'm having this conversation with these 11th and 12th graders. They're annoyed. They're like, we're not going to talk about racism. They want me to leave. So I said, well, listen, guys, this is situational. So if you think about who was present at the beginning, the founding of the nation, the people who were in that room created the power class. It was white, wealthy, heterosexual, Protestant men, mainly. There were no women in the room. If you look at the pictures from the signing of the Declaration of Independence or any other early pictures from the dawning of time in the United States, the decisions that were made about who was important, who was able to own land, who was able to vote, whose opinions mattered were made by men. So their frame of reference was impacted by their identity frames. The fact that they were white, wealthy, Protestant, heterosexual, and generally able-bodied set us up for the situation that we're looking at now. So it is situational. Getting the frame off the students kind of helped. Some of the foundations of intersectionality: Black feminist theory, critical race theory, which is preceded by critical legal studies, and intersectionality. Patricia Hill Collins tells us, I don't know if you can see this, I suggest that Black feminist thought consists of specialized knowledge created by African American women, which clarifies the standpoint of and for Black women. In other words, Black feminist thought encompasses theoretical interpretations of Black women's reality by those who live it. So in the case of Black feminist theory, the voice of the Black woman is centered in the conversation, as opposed to the experiences that we have where the voices of privileged people are often centered in conversations. Critical race theory: Derek Bell is considered the contemporary father of critical race theory. And I'm going to do something that is normal for social science or heuristic research presentations. I am actually going to read to you from a book. So some of the basic tenets of critical race theory. What do critical race theorists believe? Probably not every member would subscribe to every tenet set out in this book, but many would agree on the following propositions. First, that racism is ordinary, not aberrational. Aberrational meaning, a passing fancy. It's something that happens, occasionally. According to critical race theorists, racism in the United States is the usual way society does business, the common, everyday experience of most people of color in the country. Second, most would agree that our system of white over color ascendancy serves important purposes, both psychic and material, which, going back to my previous example, was created at the dawn of the country, based specifically on who was in the room. Just imagine if it wasn't white men. The dynamic would be completely different. So it is situational. The first feature, ordinariness, means that racism is difficult to cure and address. It is as invisible as the air that we breathe. It is always present, it is always acting, and the hard part about racism is that once you figure out how to address it, it will change its form. So it's something that is actually in progress and moving, living, breathing as time goes on. There is an investment to keep it going because there are classes of people that benefit from its operation. The second feature is sometimes called interest convergence or material determinism, because racism advances the interests of both white elites materially and working class people psychically. Large segments of society have little incentive to eradicate it. This example, perfect example, is the labor movement in the 50s. Even though poor whites would not benefit if labor unions were to come into existence, they voted against it because they decided to choose their race over their class, when they should have been joining with other poor people to say, yes, we need labor unions, yes, we need good working conditions. They decided to side with elite whites. Similar to what happened in the last election. There are tons of poor people in rural areas who have been forgotten. They decided to side with wealthy whites instead of siding with people who are interested in supporting folks who have been economically disadvantaged. Psychically, it makes sense. but materially, it does not. A third theme of critical race theory, the social construction thesis, holds that race and races are products of social thought and relations, not objective, inherent, or fixed. They correspond to no biological or genetic reality. Rather, races are categories that society invents, manipulates, or retires whenever it's convenient. The three main tenets for CRT. Intersectionality, we have Kimberlé Crenshaw. When feminism does not explicitly oppose racism, and then anti-racism does not incorporate opposition to patriarchy, race and gender politics often end up being antagonistic to each other, and both intersections lose. So it's like the two cancel each other out. It would be easier for me to allow her to describe the concept in her own words. We're going to watch a short clip of this video.
I'd like to try something new. Those of you who are able, please stand up. Okay, so I'm going to name some names. When you hear a name that you don't recognize, you can't tell me anything about them, I'd like you to take a seat and stay seated. The last person standing, we're going to see what they know, okay? All right. Eric Garner. Mike Brown. Tamir Rice. Freddie Gray. So those of you who are still standing, I'd like you to turn around and take a look. I'd say half to most of the people are still standing. So let's continue. Michelle Cusseau. Tanisha Anderson. Ara Russer. Megan Hockaday. So if we look around again, there are about 4 people still standing. And actually, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I just say that to encourage transparency, so you can be seated. So those of you who recognize the first group of names know that these were African Americans who've been killed by the police over the last 2.5 years. What you may not know is that the other list is also African Americans who have been killed within the last 2 years. Only one thing distinguishes the names that you know from the names that you don't know: gender. So let me first let you know that there's nothing at all distinct about this audience that explains the pattern of recognition that we've just seen. I've done this exercise dozens of times around the country. I've done it to women's rights organizations. I've done it with civil rights groups. I've done it with professors. I've done it with students. I've done it with psychologists. I've done it with sociologists. I've done it even with progressive members of Congress. And everywhere, the awareness of the level of police violence that Black women experience is exceedingly low. Now, it is surprising, isn't it, that this would be the case? I mean, there are 2 issues involved here. There's police violence against African Americans, and there's violence against women. 2 issues that have been talked about a lot lately. But when we think about who is implicated by these problems, when we think about who's victimized by these problems, the names of these Black women never come to mind. Now, communications experts tell us that when facts do not fit with the available frames, people have a difficult time incorporating new facts into their way of thinking about a problem. These women's names have slipped through our consciousness because there are no frames for us to see them, no frames for us to remember them, no frames for us to hold them. As a consequence, reporters don't lead with them, policymakers don't think about them, And politicians aren't encouraged or demanded that they speak to them. Now, you might ask, well, why does a frame matter? I mean, after all, an issue that affects black people and an issue that affects women, wouldn't that necessarily include black people who are women and women who are black people? Well, the simple answer is that this is a trickle-down approach to social justice, and many times it just doesn't work. Without frames that allow us to see how social problems impact all the members of a targeted group, many will fall through the cracks of our movements, left to suffer in virtual isolation. But it doesn't have to be this way. Many years ago, I began to use the term intersectionality to deal with the fact that many of our social justice problems, like racism and sexism, are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice. Now, the experience that gave rise to intersectionality was my chance encounter with a woman named Emma DeGraffenreid. Emma DeGraffenreid was an African-American woman, a working wife, and a mother. I actually read about...
We're actually going to stop there. Can you lift the lights? So I really just wanted us to hear it from her perspective because she described it so much better than I did. And it made a little more sense. So we were going to do this activity, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip ahead to the constellation mapping. So back to your introductions of yourself. We want to spend some time with you thinking about the identity frames that you have. Each of you got a sheet that allows you or asks you to look at your identity frame. So what I want you to do now is to write in the small boxes what your identity frames are. You have to go through each of the options. What page is that? 233? Okay. You have to go through each of the options indicating your age, your gender identity, your race, your ethnicity, religious or spiritual affiliation, national origin, first language, sexual orientation, social economic class, disability or ability. Notice that there aren't options for you to like choose from a menu because we want you to it to be self-reported. So please fill those in now. Did everyone get one? If you didn't get one, please look on with a partner, use an extra sheet of paper and just write your frames in. And then we're going to talk about your points of oppression or privilege because those exist as well. So take like 2 seconds and do that, and then we're going to create constellation maps. So just so everyone is aware, this session is being recorded, so that does kind of tamper with our promise of confidentiality. So if there is something confidential in your identity frames that you don't want recorded, please don't share it. We totally respect your choice. So just for clarification, national origin refers to the nation that you're from. So if you are Colombian, you may identify as a Latina who is black as a race, who is the national origin will be Colombia. No, it's okay. And the funny thing is everybody has one. Everybody has a race, everybody has an ethnicity, and everybody has a national origin. All righty. I think that everyone should be all set with that. So what I want you to do is review your charts, and then I want you to take the identities that you listed and number them from 1 to 6 on the back of this page, 1 being the one that is most salient to you, meaning the one that you, when people ask you to identify yourself, you say, I am blah, blah. out of the group that's listed. So there may be some identity frames that you use often that are not listed, like some people refer to themselves by their job title or their major. Those kinds of identity frames are not applicable to this conversation. So do you refer to yourself as a woman first before you refer to yourself as a person of color or a white person? Do you refer to yourself as a man before you refer to yourself as a person of color? So rank your identities from 1 to 6, and then we're going to talk about saliency in the 25 seconds we have left. Okay, so who is ready to share?
So I just want to say this to Bonnie. So I think what's interesting for me, I identify as a lesbian, and that's probably one of the biggest, most identities that I hold that I share commonly, I think. But what's interesting is what I was saying to Bonnie is that actually covers 2 identities, because it's a term, and it's one of the few identities as a term that covers that you're a woman and that you're gay. Most identities otherwise, it's kind of a one thing, right? But I think probably because when the term was coined, it was during the women's movement and when feminism was a really big charge and push. And so I just think it's interesting because I wrote it down and I was like, oh, it's 2.
Right.
I don't know. This is interesting.
So if you start with that, that could indicate that the intersection of those 2 identity frames are your points of oppression or your points of privilege, depending on what the identity frames are. So that's a good observation. It's also a good observation that terminology came out of the feminist movement, which, like other movements, sometimes conflates or often conflates identity frames that are actually intersecting. So that is a great example. Thank you, Casey. So if you buy the book, which you should, on page 140, they're using the constellation mapping concept from, I want to say, astronomy, that says stars in a constellation are ranked from 1 to 6. The biggest one is 1, and the smallest one is 6. Their levels of brightness indicate how they fall in the ranking of 1 to 6. So the goal of translating this concept to identity mapping is to help you understand what identity frames of yours are more salient to your everyday life, more important, they shine brighter, they are the things that you identify about yourself along the axis that we have identified. So that is the point of that activity. Let's pick another person that may have a different identity frame who wants to share. Feel free. You're being recorded.
So I think for me the point is that it's also very situational, because I think in the better half of my life, I would say that age is much more, a much stronger identity than it might have been when I was in my 20s or in my 30s. I think about it more, I think about what that means in terms of relevance, and it again can be from a point of oppression or from a point of privilege. So I think that concept of it being situational is really important.
Yeah, so identity is fluid over time. It changes as things go along. It's not necessarily constant. Some of them are constant, but there are some of the other ones who are actually changing over time. Thank you, Sue. That is very enlightening. So back at the table back here, the lady who's in the bathroom, because she is having a baby. Not right now. She's not having a baby. No. She's
not necessarily in the bathroom because she's having a baby.
Right. That came out really wrong. Okay. So, sensitivity training for Charlene next week. So she was having trouble figuring out whether the difference between being white, Caucasian, American, and Irish. So she was like, I don't know where to put these things. Which box do I put them in? So I did explain to her that your race is white, your ethnicity is Irish, your national origin is American. So one of the things that intersectionality brings to light is that every person has a race. every person has an ethnicity, and every person has a national origin. Sometimes we talk about race and we completely forget or block out or interchange words so that people are like, I'm American, truly. And I'm like, no, actually, you're not. You're a race or an ethnicity that has a history that's attached to larger social systems of oppression, dominance, or privilege. So before you can actually get to the point where you start fighting oppression, you have to acknowledge the fact that there are systems of oppression that are built contextually, situationally, and that are attached to all of these identity frames. Sometimes they intersect and they create multiply oppressive identities. Sometimes they intersect and create what is called up and down identities. White women are strangely situated because they have one identity frame that is privileged and one identity frame that oppresses them. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic. And there are other identity constellations where people have up and down identity connections. Men who identify as gay, who are also white, are in the same situation that white women are. So learning about your identity constellations and looking at the places where they intersect to see how privilege or oppression lives in that intersection, right there in the middle where those 2 points or 3 points meet, is really what intersectionality is trying to get at. However, the authors caution us, and this is my closing comment, I will say more later on, our aims are to situate the relevancy of intersectionality racially, historically, and politically, and to encourage white activists, scholars, and researchers interested in ideas produced by scholars of color to study the context of the work produced by scholars of color before applying it to their own. Thompson, 2003, warned that taking the work of people of color seriously requires studying their projects, not just quoting the occasional point that coincides with what we're going to say anyways, which is actually how I got my first publication. One of our faculty members said, I want to use critical race theory, and it's very, very clearly stated in the theory that there should be no research work that is not designed with any people of color that uses critical race theory as a theoretical framework. So, but that is not the only way that goes. I would not be the kind of person that's using Native American theories just willy-nilly because I feel like I can. So there are boundaries that ask you to think deeply about the foundational purposes of theories that are created by indigenous people so that we don't co-opt theories and turn them into other things. So if you're interested in really digging into intersectionality, you have to start where it all began. You must start with the legal discourse. Kimberlé Crenshaw is a lawyer. So there's a volume called Critical Race Theory, the key writings that form the movement. So this is really where you have to start if you're interested in digging into intersectionality, because these are the foundational readings. Unfortunately, I did not leave enough time for us to ask questions, so I'll be at the book chat thingy at 4. I hope you can come. If you cannot, please feel free to email me questions. If you need other comments, I'll be able to provide those. I apologize for the time crunch. Thank you all for coming. It was great. Don't be so perplexed and sad. Be happy. We're done. I don't know what's happening next. Does anyone have any burning questions that they need answered right now? What the heck just happened to me?
You're gonna have a lot of emails.
I'm dealing with guilt. I don't know what to do.
Well, what if I don't teach? You know, this is very theory based, and I don't teach. My job requires me to do X, Y, and Z. What is the benefit of me incorporating intersectionality into my work?
So the benefit of you incorporating this into your work, if you don't teach, you're a policy person, you're a staff person, is to think about policies, practices and procedures that exist in your area that may unconsciously oppress people based on one or more of their identity frames. Let's say, there's student activities. Okay, let's use student activities as an example. Let's say that student activities decides to create a policy where all students have to pay a $500 deposit before they can travel under any circumstances with any department across the institution because of whatever reason, something happened and they feel like they need a deposit. So great, let's put this policy in effect. It's going to be fine. However, this policy will inadvertently prevent students who identify as low income and likely students who identify as first generation from being able to travel with student groups on campus. So we create policies for a reason. Like, we have a good reason. There was a situation where we spent $10,000 on a bunch of plane tickets and the kids disappeared. They changed their mind at the last minute. I mean, I don't know what happened. They went on IQP or MQP, they got their dates mixed up, something. It costed the university $10,000. So we're gonna put this policy in place to make sure that we never lose $10,000 in airfare again. However, what you have done inadvertently is you have decided that only a certain type of student is allowed to travel in college, which limits the educational experiences and opportunities of students who are low income. It limits the access to study abroad or travel opportunities, which are essential for educational and academic growth. So even though sometimes we do things that are in the best interest of the institution, it is inadvertently harmful to students. And unless we recognize and admit that all of these identity frames exist, and that all of these students need different kinds of things, we could be guilty of inadvertently just creating policies that harm people. And when you talk about intersectionality, it gets really complicated because you're dealing with multiple identities that could be up and down identities or could be, doubly oppressive identities. So that example was simple, but it could get really complicated when you're talking about identities that are intersecting. Did that answer your question? Okay. Thank you.